I'm James Whitford, and I am the co-founder and CEO of True Charity. So my wife co-founded the original organization Watered Gardens with me, and True Charity has grown out of Watered Gardens Ministries. We exist to champion a privately funded, effective movement of charity across the United States. It's not so much the charity that we do as it is the charities that we're impacting. So just to give you the story. So the story is 24 years ago, my wife and I start this mission in Missouri, and initially we would have practiced what many people today call toxic charity. It was charity that was basically handout. I like to say there was a lot of compassion for the poor, but not much of a mind for the poor. And so there was a lot of activity, but it wasn't generating good results. So we ended up going through some change in our own model, just going through the learning curves and realizing, gosh, there are better ways to help people than to just give them things. We need to understand that every person's created in the image of a maker, and so is intended to make and to produce. And so we started to change our model, and as we did that, we had thousands, literally, of people who had become dependent on us for handouts, then began going other places. And we realized that dependency, right, is a big problem. And not just in our community, but dependency is a national epidemic in the United States today. So I realized, well, we've got to begin to influence our community and some of the larger systems that are at work that continue to treat people like objects, right, of benevolence rather than subjects who should own their own journey out of poverty. So True Charity is the solution to that. It's why we started True Charity, realizing that bad charity crowds out good, effective developmental charity. Just as far as examples of people being trapped in dependency is very common. The 5 steps to dependency are important for everybody to know, and I'll share them real quickly. If you give something to somebody once, they'll appreciate it. If you give it to them again, they'll anticipate that you're going to give it a third time. If you give it a third time, they'll have an expectation it's coming a fourth time. If you give it a fourth time, they'll feel entitled to it, and a fifth time, they'll be dependent on you for it. So appreciation, anticipation, expectation, entitlement, and dependency. And so we see this play out in a lot of different ways, especially through government programs that are really means-tested programs, meaning if you drop below a particular income level, you qualify. And what happens is not only are people becoming dependent on bad public charity and bad private charity, but it creates perverse incentives, because if the quantity of stuff I'm going to get is directly related to how poor or how sick I am, then I have lost drive to make my way out of that. One example is a woman named Jocelyn who was an addict. So she was addicted to needle drugs for well over a decade. Once lived in a cardboard box on Skid Row. And I mean, she was really, really out there, and ended up coming into our community. She got in a lot of trouble, ended up having to do community service at our nonprofit, at our mission. And through that time, we really got to know her, developed a relationship with her. She developed faith, and then ended up really wanting to get away from all of the stuff that she had been involved in. She got off drugs, got clean. One of the interesting things, though, is she had such a hard time giving up her food stamp card. She had been dependent on food stamps for just as long as she could remember. And so, again, a good example of a handout charity she was dependent on. In fact, she said to a reporter in a news interview that it was easier for her to get free from heroin than it was for her to get free from food stamps. She was that dependent. She finally did. She finally gave up the food stamp card and went on to college and got a degree, and then ended up getting her master's, all with the aspirations of working for our mission, and today now runs one of our shelters at our mission. So it's a great story, but again, it highlights the limitations, the learned helplessness, the limitations some people feel, like they just don't know how to break free from whatever has been given to them for years and years. And I mean, churches and charities and the government can all be bad at trapping people in that cycle. And it's important that we help people realize that they've got something on the inside that can be used to create wealth for themselves. So I've known Patrick for quite a while, since he was doing some work with Acton Institute. So we met there and developed a relationship. And of course, I mean, what RTF believes in, as far as, freedom, personal responsibility, human dignity, helping people get away from handouts, moving to hand-ups. I mean, it's everything that we believe in. So there's a lot of alignment in how we think, doing this from believing in the power of civil society and not needing government to do this work for us. So there's a lot of alignment between my own heart and what Rising Tide believes in. So the project is an expansion of our True Charity network. So True Charity, again, is championing a privately funded, effective charity across the nation. But the project that Rising Tide is specifically involved in is expanding our network of organizations. So we have a few different outcome domains. One of them is to improve charity work. That's one of our outcome domains. And we're doing that through model action plans and toolkits that we develop, as well as other trainings for organizations so that they can have something that's very helpful for them to take the ideas that we would talk about in a space like this and put them into action. How do we actually do that? How do we take a food pantry giveaway program and turn it into a food co-op? How do we put an earn it model in our community where people could earn a little bit of what they need instead of just be given it? How can we help organizations begin to measure outcomes? So we have an outcomes toolkit. So we're engaging organizations through our network with a lot of information and equipment that's helping them make that transition. So what we want to do is grow our network. We're continuing to develop all of the tools and the training that is really demanded by organizational leaders who want that help, but we need to expand our network and grow that organizational network to 1,000 over the next 5 years is our goal. So for the future of True Charity, over the next handful of years, growing our network somewhere close to 1,000 nonprofits across the United States who are all leaning into the ideas of privately funded, outcome-driven, work-oriented approaches is going to be incredibly meaningful, because that's a larger collective voice for the kinds of things that we believe in, that Rising Tide believes in. And so what we'll do at that point is begin to leverage some of that voice for momentum in other outcome domains. One of them is influencing policy. So we know that bad charity is funded by bad policy to a great extent. So when we grow that network, we want to begin to utilize that to influence policy, to tell policymakers, look, we have 1,000 organizations serving probably at that point it would be 10 million, maybe 20 million people who are aligning with these ideas that are so important, the power of civil society, and not needing government to be so intrusive in the work of charity that usually does more harm than good.